Christine Waldman. Elizabeth Devine.
Present.
Jessica Stoneback. Absent. We expect her later. And myself, Pat Franks. Thank you.
Okay, for the agenda, we have one minor change. John Taylor could not make it, so he sent the next best thing, I guess.
Maybe better.
Better.
The
Wes
next
Chin is here tonight, so that's the only change that I have to the agenda. And
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
One second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? No minutes to approve tonight. So we'll move on to council public announcements.
Well, Madam President, the Kiwanis folks probably have some things to announce, so I will let them do that. Our local library guild has their book sale and mini bazaar is this Friday and Saturday from 11 o'clock to 4, both days. They have some crafts for children planned and other fun things, so try to stop by there when you can at our White Center Library on Anbound.
The food bank dinner was a success. They raised $120,000. Thank you, everyone. Yes, it was great. And we're going to have a special meeting of the fire district on Thursday, the 13th, starting at 5 o'clock. The point is to determine the benefit charge that you all voted in favor of this summer. So that will be important to many of us. Please feel free to attend. It will be in this room. Thank you.
Any other council announcements?
I have one. The Evergreen Athletic Department is going to have their banquet for athletes and families on November 20th, which is a Thursday. Now, because Evergreen does not have a PTA or a booster club, one of the churches in the area has volunteered to help coordinate that, Mount View Presbyterian Church. And they have, however, they're looking for volunteers, the people who would like to help set up, who would like to help clean up, who may be, it's going to be a spaghetti dinner, who might like to help prepare spaghetti and that kind of thing. The sign-up sheet is on the table. And so if you would like to do a little bit for the high school students and help bring that team spirit to the athletic banquet, please sign up.
Okay. Did you have anything to say about the business mixer?
There was a business mixer and last week, and it was a number of the business owners got together at the Storefront Deputy Sheriff's Office, which is also the office where King County Rep. Bong Santo Domingo is twice a week, and I would say it was a successful meeting. People got to know each other. We found out different things that are going on. There's a number of new businesses that are coming to the area, so, and I'm sure the blogs will have information on that. There's a new record store that just opened up, and so there's going to be a few more changes, so keep an eye out for that.
Okay. All right. Any public announcements? Yes, Gil.
Just a brief addition to what had already told us about the book sale. She gave the times tomorrow and next day. And these activities are to support the White Center Library Guild. And the Guild's purpose is basically to help support the White Center Library. And most of the program money, I did some checking that to find out. Most of the program money goes to children and teen programs, usually after school and special events for those kids. It's a little way to help the community, get a little bit more out of the kids and get them involved in library activities and saying, well, kids read after that, after they attend some activities, oh, wow, I didn't know such a cool thing. So, thank you.
Yes, Bob?
This Saturday, the Museum of Flight is accepting 787 from the Boeing company. They're going to bring it over. It won't go on this, it will be open this weekend for viewing if you want to go on board. But all Boeing employees, up to 6 guests, are free to this Saturday. So if you know anybody that works at Boeing, have them come over and get them free.
Thank you.
Give you $150 million worth of airplanes, you can let them in.
Rachel?
I just, maybe most of you know, but a wonderful teacher coach who taught, I think, at Evergreen for some 40 years, Doris Burton, passed away, and her memorial will be the 15th of this month. It's in Des Moines, and I didn't bring the information with me, but I just got on Google and just Googled Doris Burton, and it came right up. So there maybe there'll be an announcement in the paper. She was an extraordinary woman and gave so much to the kids. She did a lot of teaching, health and coaching, and then she actually retired a couple of times, and her last teaching was with disabled children, and yeah, she's really a tremendous asset at Evergreen.
Thank you. And Beth, do you?
It is that time of year for Kiwanis, and we have a few things for you. I want to piggyback on what you've said about things that have happened. The food bank, we're really proud of our Kiwanis high school kids that helped with that food bank auction because they sold out all of the gold necklaces. That's just pure cash to come in, and they sold, I think, like $1,600 worth of raffle tickets because they were just real go-getters. And they will be out helping the Highline Exchange Club with its auction too. This year they have filled the food bank on their days of service with at least 15 kids each time. So we're really proud to be helping them, and you could help them too by buying. We have the chocolate covered nuts and the gourmet mixed nuts, no peanuts. And they really are good, anybody that's ever had them, and they are still delicious. They're $20, and that's pretty comparable if you go to the store, so it's not.
Quality is first rate.
Yeah, they're good nuts. We should have them through the holidays, but the chocolate covered nuts tend to sell out. Chocolate speaks for itself. We also still have the C's chocolate bars, and we're gonna continue selling them all year because we got such a good deal from C's. So I'll be just bringing them if you just have a chocolate. Or if you have a business, I know Chris bought a case to sell at his store. That's also a good way to help us, so we would appreciate that. And then we also have another Key Club that we sponsor at New Start Alternative High School over at the old Salmon Creek. And many of you have supported them in the past by attending the potato dinner. It's a potato bar dinner, and it includes a salad and beverage and desserts. And the Delridge Boys, that some of you may know, our local great band from the 60s sort of music, they always come out to entertain us for free. And I don't know if the kids will be doing something special too, but the information about that is here, and the event is December 2nd. Several of you actually have recommended to us over the years that we raise the price because we were just trying to keep it really low so the parents and the families could come in. So we did, and it's $15 a person or 2 for $25. Kids under 5 are free. But it's still a really good night out, and it's a good bargain. So these are 3 ways that you could help support the kids in our area through Kiwanis. So I hope after the meeting, maybe see me.
Thank you. So we'll move on to Weston from the water, you're the assistant unit manager for the water, land, and resource division of King County.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for having us here. I'd actually be remiss if I didn't introduce Ken Bressett. He's actually the program manager for our regional facilities. And he was a big part, a vital part of the previous cleanup efforts that we had out at White Center Bob. Once again, I'm Wes. John's really sorry he couldn't make it. It's great to see good turnout at the community meeting. And what I'm here to discuss with you folks is the issues that we've been having at White Center Bog. And the bog itself is technically 3 parcels that is bounded to the north by Roxbury and to the south by 102nd. But the area of main concern seems to be a heavily wooded area in what we have termed Cell 2. And that's this area here. I don't know if everybody is familiar with the issues that we've been having here, but there are quite a few illegal encampments that have kind of sprouted up throughout the year and throughout the many months that we've had good weather. And even with the bad weather, we're finding that these folks are finding their way into this heavily wooded area. And so back in September, in a partnership with the King County Sheriff's Office, Department of Health, and the Friends of the Trail community group, King County Willard moved forward with a brush removal and cleanup, another cleanup effort. And I kind of put this photo up here. But what we ended up doing was we removed about 6 dump truckloads of brush and garbage from the area in hopes of deterring these illegal encampments from returning. The Department of Health had a key role, namely because they would be doing the mental health screenings and assisting some of the folks that were in these illegal encampments. The main reason why we're interested in doing anything for this site is not just for public safety, but Water and Land has a huge investment in water quality. And this site is basically a water quality site. It captures the water into the subbasin, and it treats it through the natural habitat that we've created in the wetlands, in particular, this area. And the water flows south to a Cell 1 pond, which is on the back. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with this one, but this one was actually just rebuilt 2 years ago, 2 summers ago. And we really think that we haven't had the encampment problem that we have with this one, mainly because it's so wide open and visible. So I think the community would be glad to know that Willard is still continuing efforts in looking at removing additional brush. But since September, I believe it was the first weekend of September?
Yes.
Encampments have popped up again. And so funding is a little tight, requires us to call in the health department again. And the sheriff's office is always more than willing to help, but it is a public safety issue first and foremost. So as the property custodians that Willard is and King County Parks, we feel like we need to do our duty in keeping it clean. So there are currently, we're in discussions of possibly doing some future work to that Cell 2 and possibly opening it up like Cell 1. And again, funding being the issue, Cell 1 in particular was funded by a grant. And so we are going to be pursuing those same avenues for funding for Cell 2. Am I missing anything again?
Sure.
So the next best thing is coming up now. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Ken again, and he'll go through exactly what was cleared and answer any questions regarding future work that may be happening in this area.
I'm Ken Gressett, the program manager for our regional facilities program in King County. And this is one site out of about 70 that we manage. This site tends to take a little bit more time than most. Some of the challenges of the site is that this water through here has quite a problem. We're exceeding the Department of Ecology standards for fecal coliforms.
Right.
And also bacteroides is a bacteria associated specifically with human fecal coliforms. It's one of the few sites where the water quality might be improved if we took out all the vegetation around there, so the campers couldn't hide through there. This site, the sheriff's office had 913 calls concerning activities on the site in 1 year. So we're looking about 2.5 calls per day. It's a very unpleasant site. My first visit there, I was kind of hearing the screams of anarchy, and I was out of sight of the road and came around the corner and a woman screaming, a man has her pinned down to the ground. I don't know what does it. I guess the 24-inch long machete improves their listening skills. But he did get off of her and got out of there. But it's amazing the way that the cost is built up. The homeless weren't so much of the problem in the first year. It cost us about $2,000 a contract with Sound Mental Health. The homeless folks were fine. It's the sex offenders and the felons that we have the real problems with. Sound Mental Health went out this year and they said, I don't know why we're at the site. You know, no one is interested in any help. But what we're doing right now is that basically we're trying to remove a lot of the hiding areas and open up the sight lines in here so the sheriff's deputies can spotlight it at night. And the first phase would be just to open it up as much as we can. A lot of the site is wetland, and with wetlands, of course, you have tight environmental constraints. This will be the focus. This area right down here was a little over 1/2 acre that we cleared in September. The next thrust will be to get through here and specifically to open up sight lines from the top. Because even something as simple as a spotlight that gets through the area tends to disturb the campers, keep them moving around there. The problems that we're having is some of our volunteers can't work on the site anymore, and that's due to the hypodermic needles. It's not just 1 or 2 here or there. We've had it completely clean and come back and find small piles of the needles on site. The boots work well for penetration from down below, but there's very little protection from a needle stick on the side. And the Friends of the Trail group is incredible. They cleaned up the middle fork of the Snoqualmie. The basic thing that you try to do is to get the site clean and keep it clean. In last year, though, we removed 8 tons of homeless debris. This year, as the volunteers bagged it up, the residents came back in while they were bagging it up and started tearing through the bags. So now we either try to take the material and put it in a closed dumpster or just haul it off immediately. Right now, we can go in and remove blackberry vines and Scots broom, but being as how it is a wetland site, any alterations, like one thing that we might try to do is to raise the water level and flood out some of the camping areas. That requires an Army Corps of Engineers permit. So you're looking at probably a year to get that, plus numerous studies. Unfortunately, we also have to go through much more permitting to put a road through here for the Sheriff's Department to get through. And so our near-term work will just be for brush removal. I am trying to get a local interest group together to go for a community development block grant, which would provide additional funding. And yeah, the goal is, to get this cleaned up without immediately driving out the illegal campers and the drug users from this area and pushing them into the residential areas. All of this, you make one change, there's always unexpected consequences. But it is kind of a real honor to be able to work on this site. I don't know if you remember it during the 60s when the tar paper shacks were there. Maybe some remember it from the 30s when it was used as a transshipment area for the illegal liquor that ended up. But I definitely remember my parents in the 60s driving me down there and pointing there and saying, don't ever go in there. So you can tell how well I listen. But, you know, it does take a lot of time, but if you remember what Cell 1 looked like, you know, now you have a nice community amenity. You know, a place where families can actually go and picnic. And so our goal is to do what we can. Funding is always an issue, but we've been able to make some headway so far. So that's all I have. Oh,
I just want to add that I spoke with Wes earlier, and I had been contacted by some folks over at the White Center Park who live in the back area by the bridge about graffiti, and I walked through there, and I have to say, I've never been back there before, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And I sent the photos of the retaining wall with all the graffiti, and Wes told me that it'll get cleaned up, and I really want to thank the department for taking care of it.
well, they do also have some graffiti-resistant paint, and so that's hopefully what we're going to be using. It makes cleanup quite a bit easier. Sometimes when you see the rate that graffiti goes up, you kind of think maybe a sprinkler system that's just full of paint. But again, you know, even there, the goal is to remove it as soon as possible, just like on this site, is to remove that garbage. You know, people don't put a lot of work into something that's gonna be gone, you know, in 2 days or
Yeah.
so.
But for anybody who hasn't been back there, it's worth a little trip, because it's just absolutely beautiful. It's,
Well,
That's,
this site is between Roxbury and 100th and 11th and 12th.
but the park is what, up 108th
South of 8th and
Avenue? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
104th.
yeah, there's a beautiful.
Is cell 3 then the one up at Roxbury?
it-
And Roxbury and,
Yeah, it's numbered from south to north.
because that area is a problem too, as you're certainly well aware on the banks. So.
Right, and one of the problems that we run into in the cell 3 area is that there isn't so much. There's one at the very north end, there's a lot of Scots broom that we could take out. But once you're in the wetland buffer, you can't be taking out the trees. There is a lot of wildlife besides the human type in here.
Yeah.
It's great habitat for birds. And, you know, one of the possibilities is to get some trails through here to encourage schools to use it, you know, like for wetland monitoring. And it'll be nice to see what can eventually come of this.
Now you said that you need a local group to sponsor a grant. What does that translate into?
Well, basic thing that we can do is we have machinery. If we have money, we can move it. But the idea for what this site is ultimately going to be is just like any project that you do, the answer has to come from the community. And so I would be working with the groups to, you know, facilitate, like I said, our side of it, but then also to participate in the grant funding, you know, and in the grant application process to, you know, get money to implement the ideas that you have for it. Because it doesn't work for us to come in and say, oh, we've got package A park to put here, decide that we don't have the money for it. But ultimately, we want a site that the community uses. For those of you that remember what Lake Hicks was, I mean, nobody thought that Frisbee golfers would be a sworn enemy of gangbangers, but it works out quite well. You know, if you can get legitimate use in the site so that you have the visibility, then the folks that aren't there for any legal activities tend to try to find some other place.
Ken?
Yes.
Is there any potential with the Department of Ecology to, they seem to have money more from a national level, and so is there any way they can help partner?
It's possible. I haven't, you know, I've got my 70 other sites, so I try to
Yeah.
find some grant funding.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, this site, you know, we're not not supposed to do it, but it does get more of my attention, because I grew up at 118th and Ambon, and we've got a family history that goes back to the early 1900s. But, you know, with 69 other sites, it does take quite a bit of time. And that's half of my job.
Only half.
Well, okay, if it gets cleaned up and we've got these troublesome people living there, is any other part of the county going to be working with you to get them into housing or away from the community so we don't have to worry about what's happening in maybe in our backyards next?
Well, you know, the problem is there are endemic problems. When I was in high school, there were kids that it's not safe for them to go home. If you want to see how bad the problem is, this site was safer than their own home. You know, the problem is not going to just disappear. You know, you make it tougher in one area, they probably move to or move to Salmon Creek. The thing that Salmon Creek does not have, that this site has, is that this has incredible access. 2 blocks away is their main drug source. And, you know, if they're gonna be panhandling, even simple things like getting materials for the camps that they build. I still don't know where they got the queen-size pillow top mattress, but, so I mean, you might wanna check your own bedroom. But, you know, something as simple as a wooden pallet is a basic structure of these camps.
There's a lot of stuff available in White Center, and
Sure.
and a lot of stores are suffering a lot of theft.
Yeah, the cubicle walls, one place was made out of cubicle walls. You know, they are resourceful people. They tap into the power supply for the lights. The lights have gone from being vandal-proof now to bulletproof. You know, if you have some lights in there at least, it tends to discourage that kind of activity. The weather is great, but we can't, you know, shift climate change so it's winter all the time.
By the way, thanks for getting all those lights fixed on the ramp.
Sure, that's our parks department there. But yeah, I mean, they learn if vandal-proof isn't good enough, we'll go mil-spec bulletproof. Maybe we could wrap some bulletproof vests around it.
So as you see it, the issue is that they don't want other housing alternatives, is that
Well,
correct?
The first year when we went in, the homeless camps were on the fringes. And I talked with a lot of the campers, and they're doing what they can to try to keep the site a little quieter. But, you know, if I could play tape recordings of what I was hearing in there, it's just horrendous. And, you know, the homeless folks, they're trying to keep kind of a low profile. They aren't the problem, other than sanitary problems. But, you know, you get the criminal element in there, and they've got places to hide. You know, it sent chills down my spine. We found a small one-man underground bunker on this site. You know, and if you've got people that are going underground and pulling a cover over the top of them, it's pretty difficult at night to find them.
What about, is there any, like at the state or federal level, that would be interested in this property because of contamination of the water supply?
The contamination of this site would actually be very easy to clean up relative to other contaminants that we have.
I understand that, but I'm just saying, is there any way to get some other agency besides yourself, which might have some money?
Yeah, it's possible. And that's the other thing, if you want to email me, if you know, as you come up with ideas, our email address is real simple, it's just ken.gressett@kingcounty.gov. But yeah, I'm open to hearing about everything that we can.
Can you spell your last name?
Yeah, it's GRESSET.
Okay, at kingcounty.gov.
Yeah.
I just have a question about the zoning. Yes. Madam President, I would like to ask a question.
Yeah.
When you find the evidence of drug use, how do you know that there's not methamphetamine involved, that it's actually being contaminated by such a thing?
The methamphetamine processes have changed. It used to be to look for the propane tanks with the very corroded valves. I don't know what they use on what the evidence would be from the cold methods, but you'd always find the packages, the antihistamines that are popped open, and we haven't seen any of that here. The problems that we have with the hypodermic needles, these are heroin syringes. You know, any AIDS viruses would be killed because of their exposure. You've got hepatitis, I don't know how long that lasts. I don't think anybody's interested in getting whatever residual heroin is in there injected into their feet. But it does create problems for us in that we've got to keep our volunteers safe, we've got to keep our work crews safe. You know, now, I don't know, my boss is trying to get rid of me. I'm the only one that can go on site now without a sheriff's escort. And, you know, all that adds to cost, it adds to complexity to set up a project to go in.
I know in the walkway in the Greenbelt area off of 13th, that leads towards Greenbridge, and then in the alley between 15th and 16th, there's been more heroin use and heroin dealing. Is it related to the site, do you know?
I don't know, these gentlemen could answer that much better than I could.
I apologize, we weren't paying the question. We were chatting. But what a wonderful guy you were, as a matter of fact.
What you had brought up was that they are getting more off-site evidence of heroin use as far as the syringes, things, and, you know, is it related to this site? You know, I would imagine they probably try to find anywhere that they can get out of sight for a minute.
I'll address the question about drugs and things like that when I have them.
I didn't know if there was something that when you were talking to the campers that.
Yeah, I said, don't do drugs.
By the way, just to show you what happens when you chase people out of that area, which when you did, some of them ended up down in North Sugar Park.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and that is.
And they got chased out of there, but nevertheless, it's.
Right. And that's where my discussions with Captain Bo is that one of the big things when you do anything is you've got to be aware of unintended consequences. You know, I floated this idea, you know, okay, what if we come up with additional funding to sweep through the area? Well, great, then they go from here into the residential areas. You know, I mean, my heart goes out to him, but it's raising kids around this area. I mean, the psychological damage of kids hearing screaming, not just during the night, but also during the daytime, is horrendous. And so, yeah, we are very aware that, you know, if you look at the root causes of the people being out here, I mean, the drug use and things like that, those are the symptoms. The cause, I mean, are you going to start with wiping out domestic violence? You know, these problems are very deep-seated.
Any more questions?
Just so that you guys know that after the meeting, we'll still be here to answer any other questions you guys may have.
Thank you very much for all your work.
Thanks for your help.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for giving him his pulpit here today.
Otherwise, Wes has to listen to me all day.
So we have some very special guests here tonight. Ranger Wills and Captain Bo, and where did our different deputy?
We'll get to him in a second. People drink.
So we thought Sheriff Markgraf would be here as well.
You know, I don't know, I heard that as well, and so
Yes.
perhaps he will be here before the conclusion of the
Okay.
meeting, I don't know.
Okay.
For those of you who don't know, I'm Darrell Wills, I'm the precinct commander for this area. Here tonight is, the most important thing is your new storefront deputy, but before we introduce him, I just wanted to address some of the items about the bog and some other things, but soon enough, you will get to hear, see Deputy Julian Chivington, who we've all been waiting for, our savior. So, no pressure. Anyway, you know, I've been assigned to this precinct for, it's going on 2 years, and one of the first things I heard about was this bog. And I worked White Center back in the late 80s. It was my district along with Skyway, and I never heard of the bog. I don't know if we were just too busy, but I never heard of it. But as soon as I landed here, the bog, it was constant and consistent, the problems, and so the efforts to clean it up, it hasn't been just, a few months. I mean, this has been years and years, and the constant attention to it. I mean, it's tremendous work. You're gracious by saying that you've partnered with us, but you all have done the lion's share, the heavy lifting in this, so I really appreciate this, and I know that this is going to be a continual effort, and we'll support you as best as all of us can with our limited budgets. But one thing that I want to take the opportunity to talk about tonight, when we talk about the homelessness, and essentially what we're doing is we're just pushing people who are somehow afflicted with whatever their circumstances, socioeconomic, addiction, whatever it is. And for those of you who have businesses in the White Center core, you know exactly what's going on in the alleys, and we haven't forgotten about you. And I'll talk a little bit about that here a while later. But those people who are in the alley, generally speaking, are probably going to the bog and vice versa, and they're just being pushed about. And I wasn't aware that the Frisbee competitions were pushing out gang members, but hey, whatever works. I mean, we'll take all the assistance we can get. But one thing that I'm really excited about is we've been talking about law enforcement assisted diversion. The acronym is LEAD. It's been in Skyway. It was initiated in Skyway and Belltown, and it's finally getting to White Center. We just got an email yesterday, no, maybe today, about starting it up again, and it's really being kind of spearheaded by our new chief deputy, Jim Pujo, who came from Seattle. Again, if I didn't mention this, it really has been successful in Belltown. I think that it's a perfect, White Center is a perfect location for it. It's not going to be the panacea to, cleaning up, all the ills of society, but it will be another tool to help us, help you, and help the rest of our county partners sort of address some of the homelessness, some of the afflicted, some of the mentally ill that are in our communities, and so hopefully we'll start to see that roll out, and Deputy Chivington will be a part of that with the rest of our precinct deputies assisting. So anyway, there'll be more to hear about that in the coming weeks and months, but I'm excited that we'll have that in this community. The other thing I wanted to talk about is our assistance. While we haven't had a storefront deputy, the Department of Corrections has been assisting us as best they can with their limited resources with some of the felons and some of the registered sex offenders who sort of hang around. And they just came into my office this afternoon to tell me that they've made several arrests of felons with warrants in the alley, and they came out again on Halloween to sort of address some of the registered sex offenders who were not in compliance. So you do have other agencies that are assisting us and by assisting you to sort of address some of the ne'er-do-wells, to put it mildly, that are in the community. So you may not necessarily see us or see them as often as you would like, but there are people who are paying attention to White Center and to not just to the business core, but to the community itself, and trying to rid the community of some of the problem people. So anyway. Captain Bo, is there anything else that you'd like for me to, or would you like to even talk about before we introduce Deputy Chivington?
No, I think Chivington's up, the savior.
Savior!
Dim the lights, please. No, we are excited. Not to heap too much pressure on Deputy Chivington, but he was hand-selected by the sheriff. And we're just so excited that he is here As you can tell, he's not just a regular deputy, he is a superstar on our tag team. No, I'm excited. I'm excited that he's here. This is Deputy Julian Chivington. I'm going to let him introduce himself to you and tell you a little bit about himself. We also simultaneously got another deputy, not this necessarily impacts this community, but for the Skyway community. So we got a two-for deal here, and we're happy to have him. Both of them, Curtis Andrews is in Skyway. They're both members of our TAC team, which brings a lot of experience and sort of a skill set that you don't see, generally speaking, in our storefronts for sure. So anyway, without further ado, Deputy Chivington.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I've never had a job where I've had to public speak. So, kind of out of my element. So it seems like I'm awkward because I am. Originally born in Ohio, born and raised there. After 1 week after I graduated high school, I left for full-time to join the Army and ended up out in Fort Lewis. Did a couple tours in Iraq and then decided to stay out here and got lucky enough to get hired on at the Sheriff's Office. Been here for over 6 years now, so new guy on the SWAT team, so I have those responsibilities. But I'm new to this precinct. I'm new to White Center. Never worked it before. I started off working at North Precinct for Major Wills, actually. Graveyard most of the time, and then I went to the contract city of Shoreline to the Metro Bicycle Team, which was mostly downtown. We spent some time in White Center, but mainly just dealing with the transit issues. And then came here. So I've only been here probably less than a month, just a little less than a month, I think. So I'm learning everything. Bong was telling me about the bog, and I just learned tonight that I was not in the right spot. Ms. Dawson was right, that area is very nice. I thought I was like, oh, this is the bog right here. I don't see any encampments here, we'll start dealing with that too. And the good thing with Curtis being in Skyway is I've already gone up there and helped him out with some narcotics activity in the park he had up there, and then he's gonna come down and help me so we don't have to pull from patrol resources. So once we get to where this bog is, him and I'll start going down there and addressing some things too, so. That'll do it.
What's your hours at this storefront?
Hours. Right now I'm working 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. on a rotating schedule, so I can't even keep track of it sometimes. So some days I'll have Monday, Tuesday off, and then the next week I'll have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So pretty much every 2 weeks it bumps up a day. So I can, I'll be here on the weekends sometimes.
Well, in other words, we can't just go over and knock on the door. You might be there and you might not be there.
Right.
Right. So one of the things that Sheriff, when he changed our operational plan from what was a fixed schedule, that the BJ Myers, as an example, was working 4 10s, and I can't remember if he had Mondays off or if he had Fridays off, but essentially he had 3 days off, but that was fixed. Our new storefront operational plan is our patrol schedule. So all of our patrol deputies work a rotating 5-2-5-3 schedule, and the sheriff felt like that would give greater coverage. So you'll have your storefront deputies working potentially on Saturday and Sunday, during sometime during the month. So you're right. You can't sort of, he's going to be here Monday through Friday, because that's not always the case. It'll be his Monday through Friday, but it may not be the traditional. So, but he will be working 2 to 10 or 1400 to 22, however you want to look at that. And but he's also on a flex schedule, so he can adjust his hours as needed for events. Obviously, we'll be able to attend the USC meetings. Is it okay if I still call it USC?
That's really
So, but he is also a member of our TAC team, so he has training responsibilities. Those are on Wednesdays, as I recall. This week, they happen to have a full week of training, but that's the exception, not necessarily the rule. Hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn by saying that. And, but then he's also subject to being called out. So obviously, whenever there's a major event, you know, even though he's a new guy, just holding the notebooks, you know, grab this, hold that. But he still will be deployed as a TAC team member. So
What's a TAC team?
it's a SWAT team.
Oh.
We just call it a TAC 30,
TAC?
like tactical.
Oh, tactic, ah.
All right, I got into a little cop jargon. I really try not to do that, but, so anyway. So there's gonna be some challenges in the sense that it's not like it was before, but you still will have a storefront depth, and I guess I'd like to focus on the glass being half full.
Yeah, that's
Definitely.
cool.
All right. And so after 26 years, I'm very comfortable talking.
So we can expect you then, our meetings are the first Thursday of the month?
Yes, ma'am.
So we'll expect you, that'd be great.
Yeah, just shoot me an email reminder if you don't mind, but, yeah, no, that's not a problem at all, so.
Are we gonna get your business card with a phone number, or?
You know what, I do have them, they're in my, they're in the car, so I'll go out there and grab them here after this. But, yes, sir.
Is there gonna be any change in the non-enforcement of the 2-hour parking law?
Yes, we are working with that. Peter,
White Center, it's getting horrible.
Peter Tron's actually gonna help me out with that. With my training recently, I haven't been able to tackle that, but, Peter and I, he's actually on sick leave, but I kinda want, cause I gotta figure out how to mark the car and know that it's that exact same car in that parking spot.
Right.
So Peter said he had an idea, so I just need to talk to him here. We just haven't really touched base with that yet, but is on the agenda.
Can I just add, you know, Peter, this is something that the business owners have requested because, of course, it stimulates business. And so Peter was nice enough to translate my rather lengthy, meandering letter about our enforcement actions into, I believe, about 5 languages. And so I seem really smart. But I can only speak and write in English. But we have gotten feedback from many people in the community, some employees of some of the business owners, and others who just frequent with their concerns. And so I'm happy to see that people are actually emailing me, hopefully at some point contacting Deputy Chivington and Captain Bowe and also Peter Trung. But if you have questions, concerns, or suggestions about our steps to enforce the 2-hour parking, please don't hesitate to contact any one of us and you know, share your concerns or your questions or offer your suggestions, because we do want it to work, not just for the business owners but for the community. But it seems like it's long overdue.
So are people actually gonna get tickets?
Well, yeah, I mean, the ugly side of law enforcement is at some point, you have to stop talking and then you have to start issuing, so.
No, I mean, that's
Yeah.
what works.
Yeah, I mean, we like to go through an educational period, and Deputy Chivington and Peter will be a part of that. But at some point, you know, when the rubber meets the road.
Are there signs up now saying it's 2-hour parking?
Yeah.
Yes, and I think they have been for some
Are
time.
there people parking for the whole day? Is that
I'm
what's
sorry?
going on?
Yes, yes.
Is that
I think some
They're using
people,
it as a park and ride.
right, park and ride, people are employed, and they just park there. Some people use it as business owners use it as a load, unload for convenience. They don't want to lose their spot because it's close in proximity to their business. I've heard a lot of different things in my emails. Yes, sir.
I wanted to make a comment. I trade at White Center Pharmacy, and there's a drunk that parks in the handicap spot all day occasionally. Now, one day I had a trouble parking. I ran into Mr. Bong over here, and he said, you use the sheriff's spot if you're only gonna be there for 5 minutes to pick up a prescription. So I don't know if that's
Mom's mad at me because I wrote him a ticket.
I use that, only just long enough to pick up a prescription, usually takes about 5 minutes normally, 5 or 10 minutes.
Bob,
at
I told you
most,
you could park
I
there all
use
day.
one of those
We'll deal with Mr. Bond later.
I didn't want you to tow me away.
I think you'll be okay.
Another thing, we're not totally insane in White Center, but if you've been around for a while, you'll find out we're close enough to give us credit.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, a couple questions, actually, I tried to share up our questions here, but, recently, a neighbor reported, a car parked in a public alley where there was sexual activity going on. And, it was reported, and they were told that, so what? To 911. Is that normal?
I got this question, so I
Okay,
can answer
Captain
it.
Bo,
I already got the question for when I meet before the meeting. No, it's not normal. We should be responding, at least taking the information down and notifying the officers. So I already got the date and time it happened, I'll get hold of the communication
Why don't I-
supervisor and let him know.
Well, the person that reported is here in the room and might do that, but the reason I asked, because I thought it was illegal on public property, on public view.
illegal.
And the 911 operator
No,
said,
it is.
yeah, not to worry about it, no.
I don't believe
It's
it's a
not
crime.
illegal?
To be really honest, unless somebody
Public
is, unless somebody
indecency comes to
sees,
mind.
unless somebody sees it as offended, I mean, I think that.
Well, that's what I mean.
I think it's the getting caught, seeing nudity, that kind of stuff, that
Well, it was just,
starts to hinge on something illegal.
it was shocking.
Yeah, there you go. Which is because alarm being affronted is the legal term for what we have to prove in order to make it legal. So shocking is getting pretty close. I will look at that, it's not correct for us not to have notified the officers. In this case, the person was already gone prior, so it would have just been an area check for the officers, broadcast the officers, but that should have occurred.
My main concern was, as I said, cars have been pulling in my alley all hours of the night,
Right.
and I don't go out and check on them. And so this was during the day, so now I know what they were doing. And
Now
I got
being
the,
presumptive.
and I got the plate number and the make of the car, and I thought that would be helpful because apparently, but anyways.
Yeah, it's,
I mean,
the ball's dropped on our end of it.
yeah.
What?
Related to that concern, one of the business owners wanted me to relay that there is a concern about prostitution, after about 10 o'clock at night on 15th, between Roxbury and 102nd. And so that may be related to.
Yeah, to
So
the
one of the
alley
few budget cuts
activity.
we haven't had is our special emphasis team, which is the team that would work on that. So we do still have the undercover detectives and the special emphasis team out here. And that's their area of expertise. So that's something that Deputy Shivington would be working with the special emphasis team to identify specific problems, times, places, and then using the undercover detectives to monitor and see what's going on. Because we drive these big, huge billboards that say county all over the side, and it turns out most people won't do prostitution activity in front of us. So we have an undercover unit that will come out, and really they're the only way to see it, because none of us,
Right.
nobody's gonna, you see a I can even take the light bar off of Crown Victoria, and it turns out you guys all know what a Crown Victoria is. It's either an old guy on his way to church or it's a cop. So everybody knows what it is, so we have to have undercover. But that's what Officer Shivington, that's his job, is to be working with community problems like that, and that's what he's gonna be getting up to speed with. So email him specific time dates, and he'll work with the emphasis team to get some information on.
Can I also add that, again, not to push lead down anyone's throats, but that's another thing that lead is really designed to engage in, and it's also prostitution. So, and helping those people who are engaged in that, male or female, kind of support them to get them out of that life. So, just another idea.
Something that kind of anyway, there was an article in the Seattle Times by Danny Westy about a week ago about items being stolen out of his car. And it was reported.
Not in the county, that was in the city.
I know Seattle, Seattle. That's why I want to ask the question though. Apparently the response by Seattle police was, even if they know exactly where the items are and what vehicle they're in. And what about the county. If I report the car with a license number, or in this case, I guess the car was followed, they had a description of the car, and had the license plate number, and they were told exactly what it was in a parking lot, but the Seattle police said they would not come. Would the sheriff's deputy come in this situation?
Well, we'd certainly like to say that we would, and I would, my
It's a little
expectation.
clarity, I understand.
But, and my expectation would be that as an agency, that we would respond. But we just heard about someone calling 911 and saying, well, we're not coming, that sort of thing. So I don't want to, sort of imply that we're better than Seattle or anything like that. I would just suggest that if you made that phone call to the King County Sheriff's Office, our expectation would be, we don't have any directives not to respond to those sort of things. Obviously, it'd be based upon our current call load
Yeah.
and how it's prioritized, but that should be dispatched. Hopefully that answers your question. All right.
This-
I have a
Liz
quick
has a
question.
Liz, you're on the question.
How do you think things are in White Center right now?
Well, I don't live here, and so the time that I pass through, if I drive in the alley on a nice day in the summer, I would say that that's a problem. Generally speaking, we have our statistics. I don't know if Deputy Chivington brought those, but it's easy for me to say, it looks fine, because I spend 30 minutes driving through on my way to the office. But I think the more important opinion and perspective is of the people who work and live in this community. So I guess I would sort of turn it back to you, and how do you think it's going? What are your concerns for White Center, for North Highline, and the neighboring communities?
Well, I'm concerned, and I think, when I think back to when there was federal money, like for weed and seed, and we were talking about, you don't allow a community to have, what do they call it, the broken window syndrome, right? And I think White Center is screaming broken window. I think the way that people park on the streets, not only downtown, but on the residential streets, the way they leave their vehicles, parking so close to the stop signs so you can't see when you're turning out onto like 102nd.
Cars on blocks.
Yeah, all of that kind of thing. So, Deputy, what's your last name?
Shivington.
Can I use Julian?
Yeah.
Thank you, I like that better. Yeah, I'm Liz. When you get a chance to get to that, if you could maybe extend your visits up and down the residential areas and leave some nice notes on some of those cars, I think it will start the process. Because the community, more than just the downtown, has to be involved and has to be educated. And I think that will help a lot. People will get the message, I think, that, oh, we're in this together. And I have a responsibility as a member of this community to help. Because I think we want to help you.
I can use all the help I can get, so.
We appreciate.
I'd like to throw something out about Top Hat. I've never had a license plate stolen until a couple nights ago. So I put it out to my block watch and told them to watch your license plate. Right away, I got another one back 2 houses down, and they got the same thing. And this V5 or V something, they painted over Bernie and Boys, but now somebody's gone up on the top and put V5 or V something, and they put it on a truck over there too. I've taken pictures of it and gave it to the gang detective down at in Berrien. Is that a gang coming in now, or is that just some more graffiti?
I don't know, I haven't seen it, so I don't know. If it's V3, then it's
Well,
probably
maybe it's
gang related.
V3,
If it's
yeah,
V3, it's
could be,
gang
it's kind of
related.
hard to tell.
fun.
On a related top hat note, I have a locked mailbox and I've been pretty smug about it. And a couple days ago, I came home from work at 7 o'clock and someone had actually broken into the locked
They've
mailbox.
got mine too.
Yeah, it's not a great trend. And, White Center, Top Hat, we're all interrelated. Activity in the bog, people needing money for drugs are not just gonna bother White Center. And, I would say, I don't find it that amusing that White Center is getting turned into a red light district when the lights go down. It's not all that funny to me, because it creates an atmosphere of anything goes. People need money to buy drugs, they can turn tricks to get it, and it's not the greatest.
The prostitution thing is not a new thing.
Yeah.
I used to work on 15th at the wrecking yard for about 10 years, and we'd watch them all day long.
Mhm.
So it's not a new thing. So
Mhm.
I'm more concerned about the shots being fired in my neighborhood.
Mm.
I live on Myers Way. We called a couple of weeks ago because somebody decided they were just going to go racing their car up and down our street firing shots. I have an 11-year-old stepson that's not visiting my house because of shit like this happening, and nothing seems to ever happen, or it's not calming down any. Why? I want to know why.
Yeah, I wish I could give you the answer. I can't give you the answer of why it's not stopping. It's not for the lack of the effort of the two deputies who are working, from White Center to that area of South Park, Boulevard Park. Two deputies in Skyway. We have 4 deputies that work unincorporated King County in this area from 112th to Roxbury and across to Skyway. We have 2 more deputies that work on Vashon. So we just had some statistics come out internally the other day that shows that our precinct, our unincorporated deputies handle almost 2 to 1 more calls per deputy than any other unincorporated deputy in King County. And so this area is not only busy, but the deputies are really kind of busting their backs, taking paper, arresting people, making traffic stops. Skyway, we had 2 deputies this summer make a traffic stop. They ended up getting shot at from a car that was trying to kill the people they had stopped. So this it's not for lack of trying on the part of our deputies and their efforts. It's a matter of staffing. And so for me to want more staffing at my precinct means that we have to take staffing away from another precinct or 2 other precincts. And unfortunately, we're just not in a position right now as a sheriff's office to sort of, start kind of backbiting, and I want to take your 2 deputies because that's going to help my precinct. We're kind of all in this together. We have we have a redeployment plan currently, so we're redeploying some of our detectives throughout our agency, coming back to patrol, supplementing our workforce so that we can kind of keep putting our minimum staffing on the streets. So your complaint, I'm trying to be sympathetic, but that same complaint is echoed in Skyway on a regular basis, that there's shots fired, multiple shots being fired at homes next door to people who are calling saying they're shooting at the house next door to my house. There's suspicious activity that's just ongoing. And so our deputies are, yesterday morning, as an example, our first shift, which is supposed to be the coffee shift, but not at this precinct it isn't. We had the air closed on 3 separate occasions, not all unincorporated, but from unincorporated to Burien to SeaTac. 2 suspects who fled. One had a gun on him, one slept the gun, which was found later, but an occupied stolen, which all turned into a pursuit. And then we had not quite a barricaded person, but a barricaded person, all related to a domestic violence where the woman was being held against her will inside the house. So this all happened, before like 10:30 in the morning. That's what's happening at this precinct. Not just unincorporated, but unincorporated, Burien, and SeaTac. This precinct is the busiest precinct in all of King County Sheriff's Office. That's a fact. And so I understand what you're saying, and I wish that we could do something about, the sort of lawlessness, people speeding up and down your street and firing rounds and trying to shoot at each other. I don't know, it was probably 6 months ago that the teenager was killed on 15th Avenue when they were shooting back and forth. We don't take that lightly, but, 2 deputies, and then the assistance of Burien and Seattle, when they come across them, they've got their problems. So this is a challenge. I mean, it's a real challenge for our agency and for this precinct.
But what I remember the last time you were here, you said it's not for lack of money, it's for lack of deputies.
Nope, what I said last time I was here, we were talking about staffing,
Right.
and so we had vacancies that we couldn't fill. And
Right.
so it wasn't a matter of whether or not we had the money to fill those vacancies, that's still not the issue. It's just getting people hired and doing the program. So we still are carrying our vacancies, and part of our redeployment plan, bringing our detectives from our investigations units out to patrol, is to sort of support those vacancies. And so we're getting people through the academy, and we're getting them into the training program, and some are successful, but many more are not. And so and then we still have a retiring, an aged I shouldn't say aged, because I'm probably. So we have an older workforce that are starting to, the lean into the finish line. The end is near. And so trying to keep up with attrition, trying to get people through the academy, the training program, that's what I was referring to this time. We're supplementing that with our redeployed staff, but we still have a good portion of our workforce on a daily basis that are here, either as a redeployed resource or they're here on overtime.
At one point, there was, one time NUAC had a presentation from folks who helped, I think it was from the precinct, who would help come out and help set up block watches and things like that. And is that something that, I'm just thinking that, that is pretty scary when you can't have your children stay with you because there's things like that going on. And are block watches in that area, have they tended to be successful in the past, or is there?
Well, I'll say this, in Skyway, there's a huge participation. I don't know, I'd have to look at it on a map, but my guess is Skyway probably has 80% participation in block watch, maybe higher. Throughout Skyway, not just in little pockets. I mean, from Rainier to Renton to MOK, Empire, however you want to call it anymore. But, they very, very engaged, very involved. And so we did have some of our reserve deputies that were really active in that, and I think one of them moved on to be security for North Highline School District. But Deputy Chivington can help in some regard with that, but the onus is on the community to kind of get that started, and then we can assist as much as we can. I mean, again, I try not to overpromise. We're happy to have a storefront deputy to address like the big issues and try to support when and wherever he can. But block watches, it's all about communication. And one thing that Skyway does better than any community I've seen, and I've worked all over King County, they communicate better than anybody. I mean, they just do. And there's lots of examples in East King County where people communicate because they live on large parcels. Skyway does it better than anyone, which is good. Yes.
I can't tell you how much I sympathize with your budget crunch, because, especially in this area, as you said, you've got twice as much work to do as your comrades in other areas. That being said, what can we do to support you in getting more resources? Because, I look at the King County website and all the wonderful little projects they're doing here and there to improve this, to improve that, but it's all for naught if people aren't safe in their homes.
And so the thing that I'll say, which is what I said the last time, currently our precinct is carrying about 8 vacancies. And so we're allocated for those positions. We can't get the people hired enough, fast enough, which is improving, but we can't get them out of the academy. Some don't make it to the academy, some, once they get out to the program, they fall off. And so that's the challenge. So it's not a matter of, calling up your council member or the sheriff or me and saying, yeah, I want more police officers out there. Well, they'll say, great, fill the vacancies that you have, and then we'll talk about the other things. Adding to, getting a traffic enforcement unit, getting your gang unit back on the streets. Currently, our gang unit is redeployed, mine is Joe Gagliardi, is redeployed to patrol because we're just trying to fill our vacancies. And so, hopefully it's temporary, but I don't know. But that's the challenge is keeping up with attrition with a workforce that is getting older. You're looking at them, and getting in and out of the car. You're just like, wow, my hamstring is tight. It just happens. And so and then you have another workforce that's coming in to replace us, and just trying to get them successfully through the program. And that's the challenge.
Well, I think in our area, it's not just something the sheriffs, our community has fallen in this black hole of, we don't have local governance. We don't have, an economic development plan for the community. So it's not really the sheriff's department issue. It is, part of it is because of what's happened to the community, but it's a bigger issue. It goes beyond that.
There's a part of me that sort of disagrees. I understand what you're saying. I constantly look back and forth between Skyway and White Center. And you want to look at an area that's, I worked there in the late 80s, 88, 89. And it is a shell of its former self. There are virtually no businesses. There's a casino and even the bowling alley. I don't even know if it's really a bowling alley anymore. And so White Center's, you may not feel it, but you have a vibrant business core, and in comparison, and okay, perhaps you may not like all the businesses that are here. I won't name any of them, but you have business. They have those too, and so, but you have, you have restaurants. I walked up and down the street when we were having this house with the alley. I walked up and there's a pizza place. I'm like, wow, this place looks really good. And you got the bar. There's all sorts of places, that I think, man, I would eat in here. This looks good. And so, but the same can't be said about other communities. And I would just say that, I'm not trying to, blow smoke up anybody's backside, but you do have council members, and you do have, you have your USC, you have your government. And, it's just a matter of communicating with your council members, and I know that both council members that represent both communities are very engaged and very active in these communities.
Yeah.
And you're really fortunate, based upon the smaller geography. You look in East King County, and, you're looking at, 1,600 square miles between two council members up to Chelan County and Kittitas County. Not to mention your north and south border, so.
Right, but what I'm saying is we would be better off if, we have, you're looking at, we have businesses in White Center. Yes, there's some great places to eat. A lot of people in the neighborhood won't go up there to bring their kids up there because it's not what they want their kids to see. We have 3 corn shops within a 2-block area and 8 marijuana dispensaries.
Right.
And so, it is part of, fortunately, there's been a moratorium on the marijuana dispensaries. The place is still open.
Right.
And then it's up to us as citizens to report it and do code enforcement complaints. And then it takes time to get, these places shut down. And, I know we're fortunate to have that little business district. I know Skyway, and it is a different, that part of it is a different community. But there's still, we have a lot of issues here.
And I understand that. And I'll just make my final point is is, every time you go to, if you do go to a Seahawk game or a Mariner game, you pass those same businesses, just about a half a block away from the Mariner Stadium. If you go to Pike Place Market, you have the same sort of businesses, far bigger and bigger lights, in terms of those sort of CDs. I mean, so,
But then too, this is a residential community too. I think
I lived in
maybe
Pike
that's.
Place Market for years. I lived on Post Avenue for a long time. But I understand, I'm sorry, point counterpoint. Yes, sir, you've been waiting.
So, I'm used to standing up. I live, this is my fiance, and like she said, the gunshots. Me, I drive 2 hours a day, down and back, so 4 hours a day. I work down in Longview. I run the Port of Longview, and I run the Port of Seattle. Site supervisor, I run the cruise ship terminals, and hearing those gunshots at night. Plus, my grandmother, she sits in the
Both of our rooms are in the front of the house, so if a
Right.
bullet's gonna come through the wall, it was horrifying laying in bed and having him cover me with his body and not knowing if he was gonna catch a bullet because somebody was just driving up the street firing at random.
So, when she, like she said, I jumped on top of her, I did 12 years of corrections. So, I know what you guys go through when it comes to understaffing. I know what the process is. And not so much, these guys, like he said, there's a process, and he's right. Some of them drop out, just like flies. You can't just roll off the couch and think you're gonna be a correctional officer or a police officer. It takes a special person to do the job. And I know that. So, on top of that, talk about what Elizabeth was saying, it takes one person in the community to step up and say, no, we're not gonna take this anymore. And then you'll have 19 others or 20 others or 50 others right behind to back you up. Okay? We can sit here and go, what if, and everything, but it takes one person. That one person will step up to do the whole community watch and that sort of thing. But for me, like I said, I've been with her for 2.5 years. Yeah, I have a service weapon at the house. It's certified, it's registered, everything. So, I'm protecting my house, and, the neighborhoods, they're getting older. So it's up to someone like me to step up and say no. And 9 times out of 10, the families who's there, their kids are the ones that's doing the shooting, and they're not going to say anything. So we can sit here and do what ifs, but like I said, just remember it takes that one person. He can't do it by himself.
No, yes, certainly.
So we got to back him up as much as we can. So.
Well, it's all part of, that's why people are here tonight too. And that's why we have this
I think the point he's trying to make is we see a lot of whining, bitching, pissing, and moaning on the internet about this stuff happening. We're hearing a lot of whining, bitching, pissing, and moaning sitting here in this meeting. How many of you people actually pick up the phone and call them?
A lot of
Because that's what we get a lot on our street on Myers Way, is the sheriff's guys come out and they're like, well, why don't you call us? And it's like, I'm calling you now. We get that reaction a lot from you guys, is why don't you call us?
Can I point something out when it comes, we had this in Skyway, earlier in the year was May, when they had a big burst of violence that affected South Seattle, Skyway, that community. There's a social issue component to this. And one of the pieces that we have to recognize as a community, and this goes well beyond this room, this is a larger community issue, is that if we accept violence in our communities, it becomes the norm. We prove that they don't care if I put a cop on every single corner, because I had a cop in Skyway pull over some gang members. They don't care if a cop is there on the traffic stop. They shot at the guys with the cop on the traffic stop, right there with them. I put a cop on every corner. That doesn't fix a social issue. If violence is accepted in our community, it's not the number of police officers on the corner. And I want my budget, so I'm not gonna go and make this, God, don't give us cops, that's not the solution. Because cops are part of the solution, but it's not the whole solution. The social issue has to change. When we look at a community and we're looking at changes in our community, we have to look at us as partners in that change, not the change. We all have to find that solution together, and a lot of times the police department is, we're the 1% partner, you're the 99% partner. When we start looking at social issues, I don't know the answer. I don't think there's a politician out there, I think we're past the election now, so they come up with telling their stories, that knows the answer. I think the answer is a big, huge answer that we as a community have to figure out. If our young people are believing that it's okay to drive down the street shooting guns, we have a fundamentally much bigger problem than whether or not the cop's sitting on the corner to catch them. We have a fundamental problem that somebody's driving down the driving down the road shooting a gun, and psychologically that's okay. That's the bigger issue, and the number of cops doesn't fix that or not fix that. There's, whatever, 17,000 people served by 4 officers right now. The odds of us being on the right corner at the right time are almost non-existent. The fundamental issue has to change. So, I mean, throw that out there, just throw that out there, something to think about. It's not necessarily always the number of cops. And I'm gonna make a budget pitch, the major and I are gonna go downstairs to town and yell and scream and throw rocks to get more cops in, and that's what we do. That's our job, is to represent the number of law enforcement here. But we have to fix the actual fundamental issue. It's like we talked, quite extensive discussions about the bog. I can go push everybody out of the bog tomorrow. I can go push them all out of the bog tomorrow. It's real easy. It's not the problem. The problem is you have mental health and substance abuse issues that are leading them into the bog. If I can't fix those issues, we're wasting our time pushing them out. They're just gonna either go right back in or go to a different location. You have to look at what the core issues are. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about that. You call 911, we're gonna be there. That's our job. We're gonna respond every time you call 911. Sheriff's Office doesn't have any automatic calls that we discount. We take all calls, all comers. Every call counts is our motto, we'll come. But understand there's bigger social issues that we need to look at more as a community instead of looking at on an individual event. We need to look at the global problem. What's the problem here? The problem is somebody's driving down the road shooting a gun and this only generates one phone call. We have a bigger fundamental issue here that we need to look at. So just something to keep in mind.
Most of the time too, most of the gang members are getting younger too, and they're fearless.
Sure.
So most of them, they don't care.
Sure.
Just like you said, they don't care if you put another cop on the corner. It's like, oh.
It's not necessarily always the number of cops. And sometimes we in government or we in society, we try to fix symptoms instead of fixing problems. You know, we need to look at the big picture on what's going on. If we have an acceptance of violence in our community, the fundamental issue isn't the number of cops. The fundamental issue is acceptance of violence in our community. So just keep that in mind.
Also,
Sorry.
No,
Hands everywhere.
she's-
And I probably opened
she-
up a huge soapbox here. Mitch's over there right now tapping his head like, really,
Don't start
really?
this whole thing.
We could
You're
get home
welcome.
right now. Who was up? I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Go on, Mercedes.
No, I was just gonna say that, thinking about Myers Way, that I drive down there, but I just looked it on my phone. So it's more open, right? And it's at the end of Myers Way, it's really close to the Top Hat area, which is another hot potato issue right there. So there's a lot of lawlessness in that area. I don't know how to deal with the openness, and that's probably why they drive crazy, because it's more.
It's a straight shot down the hill.
Yeah,
We don't
exactly.
have any complaints that this
exactly.
helps. There's no complaint that our undercover detectives are currently working on that's
Yeah.
associated with the former Bernie boys, and that general vicinity within about a block or two of there, which seems kind of be a hub with some of the
Wouldn't have to do with
apartments and
anything
Bernie
with the
boys
top
in
of the
that
truck
area.
that's open at 3 AM, would it?
I can tell you that some of our undercover detectives are currently working on issues related to that.
Right, so they-
Obviously, I
they-
don't want to tell you everything they're working on, but I know that there's a current complaint from several residents of Top Hat
Yeah.
affecting that particular area, so I know that's one that's currently being
Is
worked
there
on.
any plans for that Birmingham Boys area and where Mr. Ebbs used to be and that station, like building something there?
I haven't
Well,
heard
if
of
the
any, I don't think, I haven't seen any.
property owner claims that they're trying to sell that property, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's an eyesore for one,
Oh, yeah.
and two, if there was something that was actually there,
But
it
they'd
would
have
probably be less
to
of a
get
problem.
somebody, I mean, the ideal is they'd have to get somebody to buy it and develop it, and that,
I
right
tried
now.
contacting Winco.
Yeah.
Oh, Winco would be great there. I'd go.
And you also have to you don't go from 0 to 100, you know, you gotta go to 2 miles an hour to start. So, I mean, you start looking at problems in your community, you start looking at, you know, my goal and the major's goal, we talk all the time, is I wanna make it better the day I leave than the day I showed up. Right? Major's on the downhill slide, he's gonna be out of here in a few years. He wants to when he leaves, he wants to leave in a better place than when he showed up. So that's kind of our focus is, let's start rolling the ball in the right direction, not necessarily let's get all the way there, and I think we saw it with the bog, you know, they're starting to roll the ball in the right direction, they're worried about the finish line, they're worried about getting and keeping that ball rolling. So when you start thinking about community problems, it's also something to think about is, you know, you said it, one person stands up, one person starts a website. I know Elizabeth and I have talked a little bit about communication in Top Hat. You know, one person steps up and says, hey, I want to get 5 of my neighbors, and you get 5 of your neighbors, and all of a sudden you have a website, and this is what they've done really effectively in Skyways. They've gotten the whole community networked in by everybody getting 5 or 10 people, every community having a little neighborhood watch, and then linking them all together. It's been very effective in their ability. They literally communicate within moments. Anything that happens in that community, they communicate. We don't do it.
And we're behind.
Yeah.
In comparison to, I mean, they'd love to have more communication from the sheriff's office, more instantaneous for sure.
That's the
I think
community's
there's
doing
two
that.
things, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Go ahead, sir. No, go ahead.
There's two things we as citizens can do as far as I'm concerned. We can keep calling 911.
Yeah.
You'll answer if you can. If you can't, you still got a record of it. That'll give the sheriff some tools to work with when he works with the county commission. The other thing is to keep leaning on the sheriff and the county commission that we need more help. Because if you don't give him the ammunition to then go out to the county with, he doesn't have anything to yell about. So we've got to keep the pressure on him so he keeps the pressure on them, and eventually they'll have to listen or they're going to go out of office. Thank you.
Yeah. You know, my wife's a school teacher, and the way they notify the entire district when there's an emergency is every teacher calls 5 teachers. They literally can notify every teacher in their school by calling 5 teachers within a matter of a few minutes. Because it just grows so quick. When you call 5 teachers and tell them that there's this emergency, and then they all call the next 5, and they call the next 5, I mean, you need to connect your neighborhoods like that. And we have social media tools that help with that, but you need to link up with the people in your community and have effective communication. And we can help with it, but a lot of times, it's you guys. Hey, did you see that guy in the street? Who's this guy? Somebody knocked on my door, they were acting weird. When that goes out through the whole community within seconds, that is how you effectively police your community. Almost more so than the law enforcement. I mean, we're a presence in that, but that's how you really effectively communicate and police internally in your community. So when you start talking about what are the things you can do to get the ball rolling, it's start looking at how are we going to link our communities. How do we link Top Hat? White Center is a big thing. How do I link myself to the street next to me is a little thing you could do. You know, that's where you start. So
We started one on our block, and now the next block is getting one going.
perfect. That's how you get the ball rolling. That's how that ball starts rolling. And then you connect to the one 2 blocks away.
Hopefully, well, they're getting down close
And it
to you
keeps
down on
growing.
Myers Way, this second block. Down at the end where the road ends.
Yeah.
We've manipulated your agenda. So.
It's very, it's
Step
exciting
down
stuff.
my soapbox. No.
I think also in our community, there, we had a push, and this council started it really, about graffiti and getting graffiti covered, and Don has helped tremendously with the crew that goes out, and Gil goes around photographing it, and we try to get rid of it as quickly as possible, and the Burnian Boys was covered in graffiti, and it was a letter from our council to the owner, and continual letters to them to try to get it cleaned up, and that, those kind of things help in the community, to just not let this fester, because then it just does create that sense of lawlessness, and these people don't care.
And the other side of that is that, the other side of that makes you proud of your community, makes people proud of your community. People who clean something up are less likely to make a mess of it, and it starts the ball going the other way. Instead of the broken windows, it starts the pride ball, pride of your community. They look at, if the community builds the park will last forever with no damage. If we build the park, it'll be all broken down within a week. You have to have pride in what you're doing, and that's the other side of the broken windows. There is the pride. Clean up your community, and you have ownership and pride.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Did you have one?
I
You've
just
been
have
waiting,
a
I'm sorry.
comment. When we were very much wanting to have, and I live in the part of North Highline that was annexed to Burien, and I'm still carrying that torch. Because I believe that one of the things we need is a governing body that is responsible to us. It's very hard for the King County government to do the governing for this whole unincorporated area. And so I'm still thinking that, and I'm now, these problems that I have gunshots on my neighborhood too. I'm in that sort of no person zone between Burien, not that Burien isn't responding, if I recall, so what I think is, we have to ask ourselves, is there a difference between neighborhood watching to help and community acting together? Because as a community, we need to be looking at what to do with the mentally ill people, and there aren't that many of them. And we've got a big organization, Novus, what is it? Navos, right in Burien. So, and then helping others with their various issues. But we need a strong, this group has been hanging on by their toenails without any money to really represent us in the community. And then when I was going out and knocking on doors to try to help people see the advantages of annexation, I talked to a deputy one time who was just coming down the street, and I asked him, he was already doing overtime. And what worried me was, I wonder, do you guys have enough backup so that when you are called out on a domestic violence call that you actually have two of you to go? This community suffered a great loss with Steve Cox. He was a beloved member of this community. It just chills me to think that we didn't have the guts to get in there and say, we want that money to get our community built up better and to give our police force the backup that they need and the rest of the kinds of things that we need to address these bigger problems. But you can't do it on a little tiny budget, a no budget that this group has.
Right, and there's two different things. There's the elective work that law enforcement does, and then there's the emergency work that law enforcement does.
Yeah.
If it's a domestic violence, a shooting, I have more cops than I could ever possibly need because we have mutual aid. I can call Burien, I can call Seattle, I can call Renton. I will have cops I'll have cops I didn't even know had police departments. Port of Seattle and Normandy, everybody's here. If it's an emergency, I can get all the cops in the world. If it's a community problem, those are not mutual aid calls, and I can't get any more cops than what I have. So I mean, the answer is there's two different, right? There is two different ways of viewing the police officer thing. As far as the actual safety side, I can get, if there's a school shooting right now, I will have so many cops, I won't know what to do with them. We have to have these big fancy tools to keep track of all the cops showing up. I can get cops for that. If it's a car on blocks in your neighborhood, if it's a graffiti problem, Normandy Park's not coming to help us with our graffiti problem. So, I mean, that's the difference. There's two different ways to look at the budgeting issues. That's why we're fortunate. You guys are amazingly fortunate that council has continued to fund the storefront positions, because that's the easiest cut for them to make for a discretionary cut. And they have continued to fund, and our sheriff has continued to insist on funding for storefronts. And that's a huge advantage to have an advocate in your community inside the sheriff's office. So, besides the Major Knight, who will advocate away. Thank you guys very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Well, see you next time.
Yes, thank you.
You'll be in the hot seat next time.
Yeah.
I must do a bad job, they didn't let me talk.
You did fine. You did great.
We're glad to see you.
Yes, thank
Not
you.
yet. Oh, yes, we'll get it. I promise.
Oh, it's early tomorrow. No, we don't have.
So we're gonna, I see we have some new faces here tonight, so if you sign up on there's a list, a sign-up sheet, if you just put your email address, I would be happy to include people on the blast email I send out that just informs you about the upcoming meetings. so you don't forget. I mean, it's a great reminder.
I got a question to the
Yeah.
council, maybe you know, or maybe one of the detectives know all, because one of the block watch people emailed me and says, do you know what's going on with all these trucks? There are in the city limits on Myers Way from about 99,
Yeah, and I noticed.
lining up all the streets, and one of
The dump trucks are down by the sand pits and down by the joint
they
training
wondered what that
facility,
was all about.
the Mormon church down at the bottom of my hill. And, they've been there, they showed up probably about, 4 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, and they've been lining either side of the road.
And there's
In a big
notification.
And on 108th, I noticed today, because I drive, sometimes
And
I
there's no
take first.
indication of why they're there, they're just parked?
Well, and the
they're
abandoned
just parked.
RV as well.
There's an abandoned RV, well, it might not be abandoned, because I'm seeing some kind of weird activity going on there, but, when I come home from work. But when I leave in the morning to go to work, they're starting, the guys are getting in trucks and taking off and getting ready for it, getting ready for their day, and when I'm coming home, they're standing there chatting and taking off and leaving their trucks parked there
Well,
overnight.
is that in the city limits or in the?
Yeah, I think it is in this,
It's,
99th, I think it's about the power lines, the toll needs.
Because
It's
if
city.
it's city, then, you can contact the city of Seattle, their roads department,
Okay.
And they are doing things with the intersections on Roxbury down there. It's not Roxbury.
I don't see any.
Is it
these are like double trailer dump trucks.
This is, yeah,
Yeah.
something different, yeah.
It doesn't look like they're doing anything local, Lord knows
Yeah,
where they're
they're just
going.
parking there.
They might be part of the Bertha project. I was thinking about that they might be parking there because it's closer down toward Bertha.
It's just the tractor,
It's
not the
just the
trailer?
trucks.
Yeah,
It's just the dump trucks and the extended trailers, so they're like double trailer, double loader dump trucks.
Yeah, they're-
And they just park there. So,
I've seen them go back and forth. It's
Yeah.
just for construction.
it's for construction, but it's weird because we've never had that on my street before, where they've just parked like that. And I'm not talking it's like one or two.
No,
I'm talking like 10 to 12 of them.
I live right up there in Top
Yeah.
Hat, so.
Well, if it, I don't
They
know.
have-
if
they're
it's
having the same
illegal,
problem
but
in
you should
Georgetown.
contact, if it's in the city, call the city about it, because it might not be legal for them to, it's probably just some contracting company that's parking them there. So, and if it's on the county property, I guess it's roads that would be concerned about that. So, yeah, and actually, I do, there's a number there for King County roads. There's a little card for it on the table there. You might want to check with that and see if things. Because I don't think it's legal to park those big trailers and all on.
Well, it's not really residential, the residences run out before you get down to where they're at,
Yeah.
so. It's mostly at that sand and gravel pit near the Mormon church.
Okay. Anything else? So we'll just move on with the meeting, and any committee reports, or, okay? Like I said, about the moratorium.
I
Okay. So we're just going to, new business, so our December meeting, we don't have anybody lined up.
Shall I try Sheriff Urquhart again?
That might be good. Yeah, we were
Yes.
missing Sheriff Urquhart tonight.
Yes. Yes, so maybe,
He might have gotten called on a special.
You might have gotten a
maybe,
special dinner.
yes, I would be more than happy
Yes,
to
okay,
make
so
that
if
call.
we can, okay, so we'll look at that. And then the January meeting is, I think it's like New Year's Day. So everybody plan on being here. But, so we're not gonna have a meeting on that Thursday, but what I would like for the council is to have a board meeting in January, maybe like the second week or third week in January, so maybe next, December meeting, the new calendars, and see what date works, and we'll have a public meeting, of course, but maybe we can do it over dinner,
Sounds good,
you know, maybe, like, we know somebody that owns a restaurant,
sounds good.
and we could do that, and everybody's invited. And we have a few things I think we can look at going over for next year, what we want to do as a council. And we have a new member, and that would be a good introduction for her to, see what we do. And so I hope everybody buys some candy tonight in support of the Great Kiwanis group, and also show up at the baked potato dinner, right? And what's the date again, December?
December 2nd.
Second,
Second.
okay, and what night is that?
Tuesday.
Tuesday night, December 2nd, okay.
6 to 8 p.m.
All right, so everybody, get
Well
your
worth
tickets. And so with that,
Barbara?
yes,
May I just make a suggestion for a presentation? I would be interested in knowing what some of the public health problems
Yeah.
are in our area.
Yeah, I would have to echo Rachel, and I'm actually going to the King County Mental Health Legislative Forum, I believe it's next Thursday evening, with some folks from NAVOS and the Coalition for Drug-Free Youth. And I'm going to raise some of the issues that have come up and see also, how the league how we can start strengthening, kind of making connections and getting a larger focus on some of the symptoms that arise, some of the causes of the symptoms, and how an unincorporated area, what support the county folks downtown, and Vaughn, when he's there twice a week in the storefront deputy's office, can, how we can.
and that might be, that would be something good for a future meeting to
Well,
hear.
One of the things that I will am planning to do with others is to make sure, or to try to encourage the Burien City Council to not give up their potential annexation, what is it?
West
PAA.
area. The PAA, yeah.
Just because, maybe nothing will ever come from it, but if they give it up, then it would be very hard to ever go that way again.
Yeah.
So the idea is not so much to work on annexation as it is to have as they say, a voice at the table. And that includes all of North Highline too, because our kids go to school here. And the public health problems and the safety problems do not respect boundaries.
Certainly.
And so, we are all in it together. Anyway, thank you. I would love to.
No, I appreciate that, yes. Anything else? So I think we can call the meeting, or?
I move we adjourn.
Yes. All right, thank you.